joining us is a family member of the show. He's been on the show about 3 times now. Lanny Poffo is here, the Genius Lanny Poffo. Lanny, how's it been, man? Thank you for joining us once again.
I am the genius full of glory and renown, still living in the past.
Well, Lanny, I have a little bit of a breaking news alert for all of our fans out there. Lanny, you're going to be joining us on March 2nd in Waterbury, Connecticut for Northeast Wrestling's Wrestlefest. You're going to be, meeting and greeting everybody out there. That's a Friday night, ladies and gentlemen. More information on northeastwrestling.com. And then also the following night in Poughkeepsie, you will be at Darkside Records doing a meet and greet on a Saturday, March 3rd from 12 to 2. And then also a little Q&A with the fans right after that from 2 to 3. For more information, guys, everybody listening, go to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. We have all the information up there on how you can meet Lanny in Waterbury and Poughkeepsie. But Lanny, are you excited to come back up to the Northeast where it's been freezing for a few weeks now?
I am very excited, Credo, but then again, the genius is easily excited.
The first time we talked to you a few years ago, the Macho Man was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. You've been on the road, though. You've been at the shows since then. You've been talking to fans. What have the fans maybe been telling you on the road since he's been inducted? Are they happy with your decision? Are they happy that the Macho Man's finally in the Hall of Fame?
Credo, I didn't do it for the Macho Man. I did it for the Macho fan. And that's the reason I proudly wear my brother's WWE Hall of Fame ring. And when you take a picture with me, you don't just take a picture with me. Oh, no. I take off the ring, I put it on the fan's finger, and we take a picture together with the fan holding out his or her fist at the camera. And I'm telling you, Credo, now you've got a keepsake. Now you've got something worth saving.
Well, hey, that's a lot of fans probably haven't seen it in the Northeast in a little bit. So coming out to Waterbury and Poughkeepsie, what an experience. You'll be able to wear the Macho Man's Hall of Fame ring. Do you have any fond memories of this area, Poughkeepsie, or this area of, they used to film tons of shows up here back in the 80s and stuff for WWE. Do you have any fond memories of the area?
I made my debut on the same night that the Macho Man did. And he was on Piper's Pit. And, he had a win on TV. And myself, I wrestled a tag team match. My partner was the great Pedro Morales. Wow. And we wrestled 2 jabronis. And Pedro didn't know that he was tagging with one. And that was me. And so what I'm trying to tell you, Credo, is, yes, I've got some very fond memories of the Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie. And also, I'm kind of a strange history buff. So I visited the Roosevelt Mansion at Hyde Park.
It's a lovely place to visit. I've been there many times. Your gimmick was poems, but you actually love writing poems. I mean, this just wasn't just something that WWE created, right? I mean, this has been a passion for a while.
That's right. I got my poetry start in the men's room of the Howard Johnson in Newark, New Jersey. And since then, it's been totally off the wall. And Credo, I even wrote one for your show. Can I poem for us? Out?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Another wrestling podcast, the greatest show on earth. And I am still the genius, full of merriment and mirth. I'm feeling good at 63. I'm looking in my prime. And I am still enamored by the rhythmic words and rhyme. Minority Mike and Credo, and Angry Cooter too. I'll abuse my First Amendment until I bid adieu. Ooh, yeah.
Wow, I love it. Another wrestling poem. That was great, Lanny. Wow. This is what we love about you. Come on and give us some poems. We love it, Lanny. You're always welcome on our show, but I don't mean to take a sad turn, but sadly you did lose your mom last year. But can you tell us maybe what her thoughts were? Because I'm just thinking about this. Your dad was a wrestler, your brother was a wrestler, you were a wrestler. Did she love the business too? That all the men in her life were wrestlers?
Well, she was Jewish. Okay, so she was naturally very, very worried about our physical health. I worry. But you're going to drive me to an early grave. But she lived to be 90, not such an early grave. I did everything I could to help her along in 2010, my father died, and they were married 61 years. And in 2011, my brother died, and she collapsed. Finally, 3 months later, I said, Mom, do you want to live or do you want to die? She says, I want to live. I said, then notify your face. She says, I can't. I said, fake it till you make it. Smile until you convince yourself that you're happy. Because you can get over it sooner or later. I choose sooner. So that's what I told her, and I helped her out for the final 6 years of her life. Finally, she just gave out at the age of 90. But she was a Jew to the end. She was a Jew. Yeah. I worry. That's the things I get. You can choose your friends, but not your relatives.
Well, I mean, I remember talking to you before the show about your, your mom, and then the Macho Man DVD came out and how she loved talking about it, and being able to see you induct your brother into the Hall of Fame. What was your thoughts about that too? About Macho Man finally getting in?
Well, she didn't want me to do it, but when I turned 59, I became the older brother, and I caught up with Randy, who died at 58 and a half, and I finally said, I thought about Star Trek. No, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Mm-hmm. You remember that? Mm-hmm. Leonard Nimoy, Spock. And so I came home, told my mom that I said, I'm going to induct Randy into the Hall of Fame. She says, you can't do that. That was against his wishes. And I said, I am now the older brother. It is now my wishes that count, and I get to make all the unpopular decisions. So Randy enjoyed not being in the Hall of Fame. He liked to be, the overqualified guy that wasn't in. That was what he enjoyed. Mm-hmm. So then they asked me if I would do the DVD with the Macho Man, and I convinced my mom to be in it. But I thought she did a good job. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, you guys did great. I mean, that's what all the fans out there have been asking for years, and, it finally came to fruition. And I think you did. I think you made the right decision at the end of that. At the end of the day, Lanny, I want to also bring up too. You have a comic book in the works right now. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Because I believe it's starting this weekend, a little Kickstarter campaign. What can you tell us it's coming from Inverse Press, the Squared Circle Comics. It's going to be called the Genius Lanny Poffo. What's happening with this? You're in comic book form now.
Well, I'm very excited about it. I don't have any superpowers. I can bend paper in my bare hands. Origami. So, anyway, it's very classy. I hope the fans invest in it. If not, I'll just send them a bundle of money myself. But I'm really excited about it. It's very well done. I'm proud to be a part of it. And this is my third book, by the way. Wrestling with Rhyme, Limericks from the Heart and Lungs, and finally, the Genius comic book. So, yes, it is exciting. And Hacksaw Jim Duggan has one also, and Nikolai Volkoff, and the Killer Bees. So there's going to be a lot of wrestlers with comic books, and I'm glad to be among them.
That's awesome. Yeah, for everybody listening again, once on Sunday, January 14th, it's going to be Kickstarter launches for that. So make sure you check it out. We'll put the link up on our site. Make sure all the fans know about it. But one last thing, Lanny. Once again, to let all the fans know, we're bringing you in. You're going to be at Wrestlefest for Northeast Wrestling on March 2nd in Waterbury, Connecticut, and then the following day in Poughkeepsie, New York, at Darkside Records, where we're going to have a little bit of a meet and greet and a Q&A with the fans afterwards. But that's not it, Lanny. I also know you're going to be appearing on April 6th down at WrestleCon from our friends at Mania Marketing. So a few chances for everybody to meet you up here in the Northeast and then down in New Orleans. Any last words, Lanny, for all the fans coming out to meet you this year?
Yes, don't be shy. Just come on up and say, hey, give me the Macho Man's belt so I can take a picture. And, it makes me happy. Because, I went against the family to make this decision. Mm-hmm. And, it's a double-edged sword. I know why I did it. I'm glad I did it. But I also know that if I meet my brother in the great by and by, he might just beat my ecclesiastical butt, you know. But if it wasn't for the fans, this sport would not exist. And it's not fair. It punishes the wrong people. Mm-hmm. They waited too long for Bruno Sammartino, and they waited too long for the Macho Man. So, you know, I just felt it was enough. You know, it hurt too many people. The Macho Man's not in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. And I had to do what I had to do. My mother never forgave me. But you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. You're going to have to love me anyway. Because you know, when I was the youngest in the family, I didn't always get my way. And I mentioned a few times. Mm-hmm. And, you know, now that I'm the oldest, now that I'm the alpha male, because there's no competition, I'm going to make all the unpopular decisions. And if I can err on the side of the wrestling fan, that's what I'm going to do, because I wouldn't have anything or be anything without the wrestling fan.
Well, Lanny, we thank you so much. We can't wait to see you up here in the Northeast. I know the fans are really looking forward to seeing you, and maybe not just the Macho Man's Hall of Fame ring, but I know they still want to meet the genius and hear all the stories you have to tell us. Thank you so much once again, and we'll see you in a few months up here, Lanny.
Okay, Credo, always a pleasure to be in your company, and of all the podcasts that I've ever done, yours is by far the most recent.
All right, well, we spoke to Lanny about the comic coming out, but now we're going to talk to the writer of the comic. John Crowther is joining us right now. John, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you know, you're a writer. You're writing for the comics right now. A lot of wrestling comics out there. Maybe for all the people listening right now, we know Lanny Poffo's the Kickstarter for the comic is coming out, but can you give us a little bit more information about this comic book and Lanny, this whole Kickstarter campaign starting this weekend?
Yeah, actually, Lannys is the fourth series that we're releasing, and actually the fifth book. From Squared Circle Comics, and it's a biographical comic. That's all the comics we write are biographical, and it's going to tell his life story from his childhood through his time in the ICW on into the WWF, with also touching on like his father, Angelo, a little bit on Randy, and one shot. It's about 36 pages. And, you know, I think it's something that's really interesting for not only wrestling fans, specifically, you know, fans of Lanny and the Poffo family, but, you know, really for wrestlers, for wrestling fans in general who kind of like to get a little history, a little background stuff they might not have known about these guys.
Okay, we have Lanny's out, but there's also a few other wrestlers' comic books that you guys have worked on. Can you let the fans out there know some of the legends they might not know that you guys wrote about?
Yeah, some of the ones that are currently available, and again, you can get these you can go to squaredcirclecomics.com actually online and find them. But the books that we've got out currently for Nikolai Volkoff, for the fans who probably remember him from the I guess all the way back into the 60s, if you really look back when the manga, but from the 60s, the 70s, and in the 80s, and I think he even touched base in the 90s a little bit. But Nikolai Volkoff, he was the first one we did. We've got the first two issues of his series out. We followed that up with the first of three for the Killer Bees, and issue one focuses primarily on Brian Blair. A lot of people probably remember Brian initially from Championship Wrestling from Florida, but then eventually into the WWF and the UWF. And we followed Brian's up with the first of, and I believe this is going to be a 3-issue series for Hacksaw Jim Duggan, which is a really interesting story. I mean, his life all through professional wrestling and actually a very, very good collegiate football career, and then into professional football, into the Mid-South. He wrestled out in Hawaii, all of this before he ever got into the WWF. Following Lanny's book. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Following Lanny's book, we've got a few lined up. Actually, tonight before you called, I've been working on a script for, and I know anybody who's a fan of wrestling has heard of this guy, probably a four book series I'm working on for Bruno Sammartino, which we've actually gotten the blessing of WWE on that one. Oh, wow. And we've got books in the works for Rocky Johnson, Rock and Roll Express, Jack Swagger, let me see here. It goes on. If anybody who was a fan of Glow Wrestling back in the 80s, writing a short series for Sunny, the California girl from Glow. So yeah, we've got some really interesting and a good range. Gangrel is a good range of books and characters that we're putting everything together for.
Nice. And for all the fans listening out there too, this is with Inverse Press, right? They also do a section called Squared Circle Comics. Can you tell us a little bit about that if the fans are trying to look this up?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably easier if you Googled Inverse Press would probably pop up. Inverse has been around for several years. They're a publisher based out of Alabama. And what happened is I actually got into comics, started writing a few years back. Wanted to do it for my daughter, and I did a series that got some national attention. It got picked up by called Rochelle. Got picked up by a pretty large publisher, Antarctic Press, and now we got the books all over the world. And that kind of led me to do this series for Nikolai. So I approached these guys at Inverse Press trying to find a home for the books, and they created the imprint for Inverse Press, which is called Squared Circle Comics. That's where we get Squared Circle Comics. So they created Squared Circle Comics as an avenue for all of the wrestling books that I write. And so you can find them. You can find us on Facebook, or just, you can go to the regular website. And that's really the best avenue to get the books that are out there. But the neat thing about, and we can talk about this more if you like, the neat thing about Kickstarter, which we do for all the books and we're doing for Lannys, is it allows fans to pre-order copies of the books, but you can get special incentives as well, such as limited edition autographed copies. We're going to have some of Lannys figurines available that are autographed trading cards, photographs, magazines, some original artwork, opportunities for fans to be drawn into the Rock and Roll Express series. So there's some really neat stuff that's out there.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. And I'm looking at some of this artwork, too, as you were talking. Can you tell us anything about the artists out there? Because, some of these pictures are incredible. I was looking at the Hacksaw photo that you got, even Lanny's photos. Some of the artists are really amazing on this.
Yeah, some of the artists. The artist on Hacksaw's book is a gentleman named Rich Parada. Rich has done a lot of work for Marvel and DC Comics. I don't know if you've got any of the art there for Nikolai.
Yeah, I was looking at it.
Yep. Yeah, but that artwork is done by a gentleman named Del Barris, who's actually the artist I also use on my Rochelle series. And Del's been in the industry since the 70s. He actually broke into the industry with DC Comics doing Conan the Barbarian. And then he got into animation. He was the lead animator for Stan Lee's Spider-Man series, television series that was on Fox, for Transformers, for Shark Tales, the movie. On Lanny's book, we've got some very talented artists, Rando Dixon, Alan McMillian. So we're using some very respected and talented artists on all these series, which makes the books, we try and make them as physically realistic as possible. They're not, yes, they're comic books, but you can tell by looking, I don't know what all you've got in front of you, but you can tell it by looking at them that we make them as realistic and accurate physically as possible.
Oh, yeah. And, but your area of expertise on this, too, is writing. When you're writing these books about the wrestlers, first and foremost, you're a fan of pro wrestling, I would have to say, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be.
Kid.
So you have to be a fan of pro wrestling.
But this is a dream. This was a dream come true. When we were talking earlier, like I told you, it was kind of funny how I fell into it, because I've got a friend. I was mutual friends with him and Nikolai Volkoff. I didn't know that at the time. And he contacted me after he saw my Rochelle series, and he said, John, I really like what you're doing. And I've got a friend who was in wrestling, and he's always wanted his life story told. And, but nobody ever comes through for him. So I said, let me know who the guy is and tell him I'll give him a call. And, because when I tell somebody I'm going to get something done, I get it done. So he says, okay. He goes, it's Nikolai Volkoff. And my jaw hit the floor, because I remember him as a kid. I grew up, I was a big fan of wrestling in the 70s, mainly championship wrestling from Florida. But, I don't know how old you are, but as a kid, everything was territorial back in those days. So, I'd see what was here in Florida, but anything else I got, I'd have to go out to, you go grab the wrestling magazines. Everything else, you just kind of read about people. So he was a guy I read about. Of course, when he came with the Russians, we did get to see him wrestle in Florida too. But so I got his phone number, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to call Nikolai. And as you probably know, and anybody who's listening to the show tonight, when you hear Lanny Poffo talk, Lanny's got a voice that only Lanny has. I mean, you know, when you hear Lanny Poffo, you know it's Lanny Poffo. Well, Nikolai is another guy who's got that voice. So when I call Nikolai, the first thing I hear is, Nikolai Volkoff. I'm like, holy crap, I'm actually talking to Nikolai Volkoff. So it took me a while to get past that before I could really settle in. But it's become, so neat. I probably talk to Nikolai 2 or 3 times a week. Now we've become really good friends. So to be able to talk to these guys and pick their minds and it's one thing to see wrestling, on television or to read about it or to, even go to live events, but to actually be able to sit and pick these guys' brains. It's really amazing, some of the things they've seen and some of the things they've done. And by talking to them, I'm trying to now get these things out to other people through the comics, which to me is I prefer it over some of these books you're seeing that are out there that are novels that are being written by some of the wrestlers. But with the pictures, we try and bring it in a little bit more. I think that just adds something special.
No, definitely. I want to ask you too, because your area expertise is writing. When you're writing a story for the Genius Lanny Poffo, I mean, where does that process begin? Where do you start? Can you let us a little bit inside your world of like how you get these stories for these guys? I don't know what comes to mind or.
I'll give an example. Yesterday, I had a telephone conversation for about an hour and a half with Bruno Sammartino.
Wow.
And what it comes down to is it's me just sitting there and I'll get on the phone with Bruno and I'll say, okay, Bruno, you're 5 years old. Start telling me your story. And these guys will just tell me everything. I can ask them questions and they're like open books. They're walking history. They're walking legends, literally. He's called a living legend, and he really is. And all of these guys are. So that's really how my process starts is I get them on the phone and I just start talking, and just like we are now, and just regular conversations. And I tell you, I've learned how to write with my hands really fast. I was never a good typer, so I don't bother that way, but I just write and abbreviate and make notations. And it's kind of neat because like when I got off the phone with Bruno, he goes, John, if you have any questions, just call me back and I'll clarify anything. So it's just, that's really where it starts. It's I have some knowledge, but I don't have the knowledge that they do. And I get to hear a lot of things I hear you don't even get to see in the comic, which, I feel a little guilty to know about. I hear some of the, the locker room humor and the behind the scenes stuff that it's not all translatable into a comic. That's really where it starts. Just a lot of conversations, a lot of writing. And when a script is done, if I'm happy with it, where I'm at with it, I'll send a copy over to the wrestlers. Once they've added or made some changes or anything like that, they ship it back. We send it to the artist, and we just go from there.
Nice. Now, once again, with Lanny Poffo, you guys are having an event this Sunday for the Kickstarter that's going to be going live, I guess. Can you tell us a little bit about that for anybody that's going to be down in Florida, I believe you said?
Yeah, if you're in the Central Florida area, if you know DeLand, it's in Volusia County. It's about 20 miles west of Daytona Beach and about 35, 40 miles east of Orlando. We're going to be at the Volusia County Fairgrounds. I'll be there with Lanny Poffo this is Sunday. This Sunday, it's 9 o'clock until 4 in the afternoon. But I'll be there with Lanny. I'll be there with Brian Blair from the Killer Bees. A little extra for it, we'll be there also. Eddie Munster is going to be joining us. So, a little extra toss in there. Yeah, but one of the neat things, if you come to the show, I think it's only $5 to get in. For adults, and kids are free, so it's really affordable. But Lanny and Brian will be there to talk to everybody, pose for pictures, sign autographs. If you come to the event and you actually back Lanny's and pre-order a book there, spending at least $10 towards the book, which I think is just ordering a book basically, because that'd be the book and shipping. If at the show, you'll get a free autograph from Lanny. We've got some postcards made with artwork on it that I'd like to cover, and Lanny will be autographing those for people. But Brian will be there with copies of his book, autographing and meeting with fans. So it'll really be a good time. I think fun for the family. It'll not be a super crowded event, I don't think, which to me, I think that's kind of neat because you can really get some personal one-on-one time with the wrestlers if you want to. Mm-hmm. And that's why I like doing some of these smaller towns. So yeah, like I said, if you're in the Central Florida area, come on out. Should be good. I think it's supposed to be nice weather too. I think we're looking at a high of around 56 degrees, which, for Florida, that's pretty chilly. So, but I think that, it's going to be nice to get out. Nice day. It won't be too hot. Won't be too humid.
Definitely.
Be a fun time.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining us tonight. But where can the fans follow you guys on social media to keep up with all the comics that are coming out?
Okay, well, you can look up Squared Circle Comics on Facebook, Inverse Press on Twitter. You can I post constantly. You can look for John Crowther on Facebook or Twitter. I'm on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram, John E. Crowther Writer. Definitely, you'll want to check us out if you're thinking about back and Lanny or any books in the future, because we will be posting links to the Kickstarter. For anybody who's never done Kickstarter before, at Kickstarter.com, you can go straight to it. It's a crowdfunding site. Starting on Sunday after 9 when it launches, you could go on there and just type in Lanny Poffo, the Genius, and the book should pop up. So, but look for us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on all. We're pretty active.
Well, perfect, John. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate you having me on.